Well, thanks for coming, everybody. 236 years ago, our forefathers drafted and signed a document that has exemplified our American values and way of life ever since. It put King George on notice that we the people weren't going to put up with it anymore. The Crown had abused his authority, generally tried to manipulate the behavior of the colonists, much of it through aggressive taxation. Those brave signers risked a lot, and they lost a lot. Some lost all of their personal fortunes, some lost family members to retribution, and some lost their lives. Americans don't take too well to being told what to do, especially by our government. Those courageous colonists and the British armies had been fighting for almost a year when the Declaration was initially signed. And even then, there were some framers who felt it was too soon to take such a drastic step. We're glad they went ahead and took care of things, swiftly and decisively. Our country has always valued initiative, personal responsibility, and hard work, a love of God and country, families, and a sense of rugged individualism. We come together today to properly observe the memory of the founders' efforts to create what we still enjoy today. Those brave souls sacrificed so much, and because of their toils and troubles, we live in what is still, for now, the most free nation ever to have existed on this planet. Equally as obvious, we recognize that many of those freedoms are under assault, and it's up to us to be diligent and informed and to hold our public officials accountable to us, the people, through the election process. This nation has become the greatest force for good that mankind has ever known, and the brave men and women of our military have defended human freedoms all over the globe. Across the country this morning, various groups of people who love their country are reading aloud the Declaration of Independence, renewing the sense that the government is here to serve the people, not the other way around. And we are given those rights by our Creator, not given permission through government action or individual benevolence bestowed by royalty. This should serve as a reminder that we can and should hold our government accountable, and that we the people are still in charge and can make a difference for good. At this time, let's begin the observance by singing the national anthem. And I gotta mention, we're gonna sing the first and the fourth verse.
Facts about the Declaration of Independence. Here is something written on the back of the Declaration, but it isn't a code or a map. It is handwritten words that say, Original Declaration of Independence. That is dated 4th of July, 1776. No one knows who wrote this, but it was probably a label and it was rolled up and put into storage. There were 200 copies of the Declaration printed. Today, only 26 are known to have survived. In 2000, one copy sold for over $8 million. Robert Livingston, who was one of the committee who wrote the Declaration, never signed it. He believed that it was too soon to declare independence and refused to sign. One of the most widely held misconceptions about the Declaration of Independence is that it was signed on July 4th, 1776. It was approved on July 4th, but the signing didn't occur until August 2nd. 86 changes were made to Jefferson's original draft, including shortening it by more than a fourth. Jefferson was unhappy about some of the edits made to his original draft. He had included language condemning the British promotion of the slave trade, even though he himself was a slave owner. The criticism of the slave trade was removed in spite of Jefferson's objections. Some of the most famous lines in the Declaration were inspired by Virginia's Declaration of Rights by George Mason. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on July 4, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the vote to approve the Declaration. 9 of the signers died before the American Revolution ended in 1783, and when the Declaration was signed, the population of the United States was estimated at about 2.5 million. The copy of the Declaration of Independence that is housed at the National Archives is not the draft that was approved on July 4th. It is a formal copy that the Continental Congress hired, made after they approved the draft and signed on August 2nd. All but 8 of the signers were born in colonies. The first public reading of the Declaration took place on July 8, 1776 in Philadelphia.
Leading up to the Declaration of Independence were many confrontations with the British, as well as taxes and restrictions put upon the colonies. In the colonies, there were no gold or silver mines, so the colonists printed their own paper money in the forms of bills of credit. Great Britain abolished this currency with the Currency Act of 1764. The colonies protested this as it caused a trade deficit with Great Britain. The colonists had been living under the Molasses Act since 1733 and had managed to evade this 6-pence tax on imported molasses. In 1764, the British tried to collect this with the passing of the Sugar Act, which reduced the tax to 3 pence, but included sugar, wine, coffee, and regulated the export of lumber and iron. This act, and the Currency Act, set the stage for the revolt at the imposition of the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act, 1765, was Britain's first serious attempt to assert government authority over the colonies. England was facing a massive debt following the 7 Years' War, and English citizens were taxed at a rate that created a serious threat of revolt. This was a tax on pretty much every sheet of paper that was written on, all legal documents, wills, deeds, newspapers, advertisements, books, pamphlets, and many, many more items. The Sons of Liberty were born, a group of Boston shopkeepers and artisans who called themselves the Loyal Nine began preparing for agitation against the Stamp Act. This group grew into the Sons of Liberty, and in August their first widely known act was when an effigy of their local tax collector was found hanging in a tree on Newberry Street. A steady stream of news and opinion was circulated. By the end of 1765, the Sons of Liberty existed in every colony. There was violent protest, but their most success came from the printing and distributing of pamphlets. In the early months of 1766, there was so much chaos that many of the royal governors had gone into hiding. The sheriffs and militia that they counted on to keep the peace were mostly members of the Sons of Liberty. In 1770, the Boston Massacre occurred. It was a street fight between a patriot mob and British soldiers. Several colonists were killed, and this led to a campaign by speechwriters to rouse the ire of the citizens. The Boston Massacre was a signal event leading to the Revolutionary War. It led directly to the royal governor evacuating the occupying army from Boston. It would soon bring a revolution to armed rebellion throughout the colonies. In 1767, the Townshend Revenue Act put on a tax on glass, paint, oil, lead paper, and tea. The result was the resurrection of colonial hostilities. In the summer of 1768, custom officials impounded a sloop owned by John Hancock for violations of the trade regulations. Crowds mobbed the customs office, forcing the officials to retire to a British warship in the harbor. British troops marched in to occupy Boston in October, and the Bostonians offered no resistance. They changed their tactics. They established non-importation agreements that quickly spread throughout the colonies. British trade soon dried up, and the powerful merchants of Britain interceded on behalf of the colonies. The Tea Act of 1773 would launch the final spark of the revolutionary movement in Boston. This act actually did not impose any new tax. It was designed to prop up the East Indian Company, which was floundering financially and burdened with 18 million pounds of unsold tea. This tea was shipped to the colonies and was sold at a bargain price. However, the Townshend duties were still in place, and the leaders in America thought this was a maneuver to buy popular support for the taxes already in place and would undercut the local merchants. Colonists in Philadelphia and New York turned the ships back to Britain. Charleston, the cargo was left to rot on the docks. In Boston, the royal governor held the ships in port, and colonists would not allow them to be unloaded. This situation led to the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Non-Importation Agreement basically prohibited a merchant or colony to import any goods from Great Britain until all the taxes had been repealed. The Boston Port Act, all ships from Boston Harbor, no foreign goods could come to the colonies. The Administration of Justice Act came from Great Britain to enforce laws of justice and suppress the revolting colonists. The Massachusetts Government Act gave Great Britain control over the Boston Harbor. The Quartering Act of 1774 gave British troops the right to confiscate property and quarter British soldiers whenever it was needed. In 1775, a proclamation by the king called for suppressing the rebellion and sedation of citizens. On June 7, 1776, Congress met in Philadelphia and decided to declare independence from Great Britain. June 11, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Roger Sherman, Robert R. Livingston were appointed to a committee to draft the Declaration of Independence. And on July 4, 1776, the final draft of the Declaration was adopted.
You might want to hold your ears. I'm not sure how loud this is going to be. It was loud. Hear ye! Hear ye! In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for the future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states.
To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of emulation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and for the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of the states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries, so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking back our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt the connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and being united. We must therefore, in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war and peace in friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for resolute of the intentions to do in the name of by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract allegiances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honors.
We're hoping this will be an annual event and grow in size as we go. But we just thought it was a good idea for people. I mean, every year we celebrate Independence Day, and it is more than a picnic, more than fireworks. Our liberty is based on this document. So occasionally we need a reminder. So, thank you. Now you can go celebrate.
I'd like to thank Becky for putting this together.
Okay, stop recording. Just close that.